Good afternoon and happy Halloween. So what a great event. Thank you, Flavio, for the introduction. So quite excited to be here. This is a great event that Parar's put on. Appreciate the opportunity to address this group. And also the warmth and hospitality of the Brazilian people. Thank you very much. So I'd like to start by just introducing my company. So I am the Senior Vice President of Global Sales for CalAmp. We're a almost $400 million telematics solutions pioneer. We've been in business for a number of years. We have over 20 million connected assets around the world. And as everybody knows, we are in the midst of a connected economy. Not only are people connecting, but vehicles are connecting, assets are connecting. The whole M2M market is exploding. And so we're excited to be a part of that. But what I'm going to be speaking to you today is about road safety and the importance of collaborating together for safer roads. And I'm very pleased to say that we're doing a lot of things proactively with our technology and also collaboration with some of the brightest minds in the industry to ultimately reduce not only injuries, but fatalities on the road as well. So I want to spend a few minutes this afternoon just telling you a little bit about what we're doing in that regard. So the IoT market is vast. It's a very fragmented market. There's many, many verticals. The automotive IoT market is a very large vertical of IoT. And beneath that, the fleet market is massive. And I know many of you are here as part of this event. You're associated with the fleet industry, trucking industry, rental car industry, et cetera. And so this particular market for CalAmp is our largest market vertical. We have some great solutions that we provided there. And as I said, we have 20 million connected assets. Many of those are in the fleet marketplace. So CalAmp has been developing technologies and solutions for a number of years that benefit safety. And some of these things are fairly traditional. Many of you here today will recognize a lot of these virtues, but we also have some very non-traditional solutions as well. So if you look at things like crash detection and response, this is a new area for CalAmp where we've made significant investment. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. Preventive maintenance is another key area of focus for us. Driver behavior, we'll talk quite a bit about driver behavior, but many of you who manage fleets, this is one of the cornerstones of how you measure the safety of a driver is ultimately a driver score. A new area, and I know it was touched on just briefly, is around the whole concept of distracted driving. And this could be people talking on the phone, texting and driving. I think we've all been guilty of that at one point in time. But also it's to make sure that the driver is alert, that they're not falling asleep, that type of thing. So we've innovated in a lot of new technologies in that area. So one of our taglines as a company is what we call the new how. And this is the new how on telematics solutions. But a primary focus for us is the new how on saving lives. And you know, there's so much technology in the world that you know, some of it you wonder, what is the ultimate value? What's the value not only to your company, but what's the greater value to society? And we believe that if you can prevent one accident, if you can make the road safer, you have one less injury, or certainly one less fatality, that you've done something for the greater good of society. And so that's been a big focus of our solutions related to road and street safety. So one of the things that we did a little over a year ago is we were asked by Dave Bronstein, the CEO of a consortium in the US called Together for Safer Roads, TSR. And this is really a collaborative effort where we get thought leadership from the major companies. So in addition to CalAmp, we have companies like UPS, PepsiCo, Walmart, AT&T, many others who meet regularly to really look at the things that we could do with technology to ultimately make our roads and streets safer for all of us and reduce fatalities. So what is the impact when it relates to road fatalities? So according to the World Health Organization, there were 1.25 million deaths every year due to traffic fatalities. And there's over 50 million injuries per year due to traffic issues and crashes. They're projecting that by the year 2030, that road crashes worldwide will be the 7th largest cause of death. And of course, if you look at other causes of death, things like heart disease, cancer, stroke, etc., there's been major investments, major collaborations in the industry by companies to help determine how to reduce that. But for road fatalities to be projected to be the 7th leading cause of death over the next 12 years, we believe this is an area that we need collaboration. And this is one of the requests and challenges that I would give to all of you, is how can we all collaborate together to reduce this number. So then you might look at, okay, how does Brazil stack up? So I had the pleasure of making my 2-hour drive from the Brazil airport to the hotel here on Monday. And even though I live in Southern California, we have our share of traffic challenges, especially in Los Angeles. I have to say, I believe Brazil is #1 when it comes to congested traffic. So I saw lots of violations, lots of opportunity to improve driver behavior on my short trip from the airport. But Brazil is not like, unlike most other areas where you have dense population. There are traffic challenges. And in Brazil, you can see that the leading cause of death in Brazil is road traffic crashes. And that's obviously very concerning. 23 deaths out of every 100,000 people. And again, statistics are statistics until it impacts you, until it impacts your family, and then you realize how critical it is to find a way to collectively improve. So one of the areas that we are using to help improve and educate drivers is to understand driver behavior. And some of these things are, you've probably heard of the concepts, or perhaps you already have those implemented today. But things like speed alerts. So when someone is driving beyond the speed limit, if there's excessive acceleration, fast cornering, harsh braking, these are all things that contribute ultimately to a score that the driver gets for how they drive over some period of time. And so driver behavior becomes a cornerstone for how we can ultimately improve. And I'll talk about some of the things that we're doing in the US that encourage drivers to participate in these programs. As you can imagine, most drivers are not excited about being monitored. I'm not sure that I would want my driving always monitored, but we found ways to incentivize drivers. Companies have gotten very creative, and I'll talk a bit about that in a moment. Another area that has helped promote driver safety and road safety in general has been some of the government mandates that have been passed. So hours of service for a major fleet is a very important area of focus. So in the United States, drivers would basically log their hours, and these would be paper logs that they would fill out. and they were to not drive longer than a certain period of time, and then they would have to stop, rest, take a break. So there was a high-profile accident involving a major comedian in the United States where the driver of the truck had falsified documents and ultimately drove for over 1 day nonstop when this accident occurred. So those are the types of things that not only do we want to prevent, but the government has also stepped in as well. So they passed what is called the Eld Mandate in December of 2017 in the US, where you can no longer just have a paper log of your hours. You have to have a device that is linked into the engine control module of the vehicle, where it's looking at the hours that it's driven, the miles driven, and if you are pulled over by a police officer, you have to produce this electronic log of your actual hours. So again, it's something that ultimately will drive safer behavior, less distracted drivers. Another area of focus is around preventative maintenance, and one of the sources of many accidents on the road is when a vehicle breaks down. That can trigger a chain reaction accident. So as fleet owners, you want to make sure that you're adhering to the recommended maintenance. So this could be just sort of standard maintenance where after a certain number of kilometers you would have an oil change, or it could also get readings from the vehicle if there's a more severe event that's reflected in the diagnostics, where you would want to notify the driver that they need to exit the road and ask for a tow truck. We talked a little bit about, again, earlier on distracted driving, and usually it's texting or cell phone use that is the major cause of this. 1 in 4 crashes in the US involve cell phone use. And what's interesting is 98% of the drivers know that it's wrong to text and drive, but everybody still texts and drives, right? So we signed an agreement with a company called Conheça a few weeks ago. And what they have is a solution where they work with the carriers. And so when you're driving, you're not able to text, you're not able to accept phone calls, you're not able to browse on the web. And so this is a capability that we're bringing to the market with this partnership with Conheça. Crash detection is something that we believe is very critical, especially in saving lives. We talk about this golden hour after a severe crash. And if your chances of survival, if you're in a crash, if you're able to get medical assistance within that first hour, your chances of recovery and survival are greatly enhanced. So we have technology that basically will detect crashes. It's very, very reliable. If you hit a pothole or a speed bump, or you pull into, a parking space with a curb, it will not trigger a crash. It's very sophisticated, very accurate crash detection. And so if you're managing a fleet and you detect a crash, you're able to dispatch emergency services depending on the severity of the crash, which we can indicate. Then we will, you can make a decision as to how to mitigate that crash, either through, calling ambulance, calling tow truck, et cetera. And again, it's very, very highly reliable. And then we have the capability to reconstruct the accident, because there is a lot of litigation that's involved. If a major fleet, well-known fleet company is involved in an accident, a lot of times litigation occurs. And so to be able to reconstruct what actually happened, where the person was driving, through the maps, seeing the impact of the collision, and it really gives a lot of credibility to what actually happened. And you can avoid a lot of litigation by virtue of this accident reconstruction capability. So we have lots of initiatives in place to save lives. I've commented on a few of those. But ultimately what it comes down to as a top priority is a corporate commitment to safety as a mission for your company. Some of the companies that we're involved with on Together for Safer Roads, TSR, a person could lose their job if they were texting and driving, as an example, right? So that's a clear corporate commitment to safety. The second area which I wanted to touch on again is when you introduce this technology into your fleets, the drivers are initially pretty resistant because they see that as someone monitoring them, where they are, how they're driving, all of that, and there's usually some level of resistance. So some of the fleet companies in the US have really employed what we call gamification. There's one fleet company that will take the score of their driver throughout the year. At the end of the year, the driver with the best score, the best driving record, the most safe driver will get $100,000, right, as a prize. So that creates all kinds of focus from the drivers to try to be the best driver for that year. So it's just one of the novel ways. There's obviously less elaborate schemes as well, where maybe you give gift cards, for driving for a certain period of time. So again, you can put incentives and you can put rewards in place. The other really third area, major initiative, is really around training. And because a lot of this drivers do because they've always driven a certain way. And if you can help educate them on the importance of slower cornering, maybe not so much harsh braking, sudden acceleration, a lot of that is just education. So we see the great multiplier for road safety and ultimately saving lives to really come down to the technology. You've got to have a technology solution. You need to educate your drivers, and then you need to collaborate not only with your employees, but also with the industry, with the government, to encourage this whole focus on safety. So with that, I would like to thank you for your time. I would challenge all of you to embrace safety as a major corporate initiative, and I wish you the best. Thank you.